Elena Foster hadn't known what true rest felt like in years. Since sunrise, she had been working on back-to-back freelance gigs, switching between 3 design projects and 2 client calls. Her tiny studio apartment had become both her office and her world, and stress clung to her like a second skin. But no matter how demanding her day became, she never forgot one thing: bringing lunch to a quiet, mysterious man who played guitar near the subway exit. Each afternoon during her short break between the deadlines, Eleanor packed an extra sandwich, tucked it inside her tote bag, and made her way downstairs to the same street corner. That's where she found Mason, sitting against a graffiti-covered wall with a weathered guitar case open before him, strumming absent-mindedly. His clothes were rugged, his boots worn, but his demeanour was serene, almost noble in its stillness. "Hey, Mason," she greeted gently, crouching beside him. "I brought you a turkey wrap today, with spinach. Hope that's okay." He looked up slowly, and a small, crooked smile tugged at his lips. "Way better than the half-bagel someone tossed me this morning," he said with a wink. Eleanor chuckled as she handed over the food. Mason always accepted it with quiet gratitude, as though the act meant more to him than the meal itself. He never asked for anything, never made her uncomfortable, and oddly enough, he didn't carry the bitterness that often came with his situation. He was different, polished even, at least in how he spoke. "How's the design world treating you today?" he asked mid-bite. "Same circus, different day," Eleanor replied, shaking her head. "One client thinks just make it pop is a legitimate direction." Mason laughed, low and warm. She loved that laugh. It didn't happen often, but when it did, it reminded her why she came back day after day. Then everything changed. From the corner of her eye, Eleanor saw Derek, her fiancé, across the street. He was walking arm in arm with a redhead she didn't recognize. She paused, blinked. The woman laughed, touched his chest, and then he kissed her. Boldly, in broad daylight, her stomach dropped. That lying... Eleanor shot to her feet. "Eleanor, wait!" Mason called after her, but she was already storming across traffic. "Derek!" she shouted. He turned, his expression shifting from shock to irritation. "Eleanor, not here." "Oh, really?" she fired back. "You're cheating on me in public and I'm the one making a scene." The other woman stepped away, clearly confused. "You're being dramatic," Derek said, his voice flat. "Things haven't been good between us for a while. You just didn't want to admit it." "We were together for 3 years," she shouted. "You said we were building a future. You were just waiting on your promotion to introduce me to your family." He sighed. "I've grown, Elena. You? You're still stuck in place. You're a struggling artist. My family would never accept that." Her breath caught. It was like being slapped without a hand. Then, Mason's voice again. "That's enough," he said calmly. He had walked up behind her. His clothes were dusty, his fingers calloused from guitar strings. But he stood tall, unmoved by Derek's presence. Derek sneered. "Who the hell is this? Your personal assistant?" "No," Mason replied. "I'm her friend." "Well, your homeless friend should back off before I say something I'll regret." Mason didn't blink. "Too late." Derek scoffed, tossed Elena one last dismissive look, and walked off with the redhead on his arm. She stood frozen. Then her phone vibrated. "Hi, sweetheart. Everything's set for Grandma's birthday this weekend, right? She can't wait to meet your fiancé. You promised, remember?" Eleanor's stomach twisted again. She had told her grandmother she'd be married by her 80th birthday. It was the one thing her ailing heart truly wanted. "Yes, Mom," she lied. "Everything's fine. He's coming with me." When she hung up, Mason looked at her. "You lied," he said softly. "I did," she whispered. There was a long pause. Then Mason, without flinching, said, "Then marry me." Eleanor laughed, unsure if she'd heard right. "You're joking, right?" "Nope," Mason said. "Marry me. Take me to meet your grandma. After her birthday, we can annul it. No strings. Just help you keep a promise." Her heart pounded. The idea was absurd. "You're a street musician, Mason. You don't even have a place to live." True, he said gently, but I have respect for you. I'm clean. I'll show up presentable, and honestly, that's more than your ex ever offered. She crossed her arms, studying his face. You're serious? I am. She hesitated, and then the words left her lips before she could stop them. Okay, let's do it. The courthouse was nearly empty that afternoon. Elena wore jeans and a sweater under her jacket. Mason wore a second-hand blazer she found for him at the thrift store. We're here to get married, Elena said at the front desk. The clock blinked. Okay. ID, forms, quick signatures. You've got 30 minutes before closing. Mason filled out his part with beautiful penmanship, neat and deliberate. Even the clock noticed. Minutes later, they were standing in front of a judge. Do you, Miss Foster, understand this is a legal marriage? The judge asked, eyeing Mason suspiciously. I do, Eleanor said. You don't know anything about this man. I know enough. The judge raised his brows, shrugged, and signed the papers. Just like that. Elena Foster and Mason Reed were married. Back at her apartment, Elena handed Mason a towel and pointed to the bathroom. As he showered, she sat on the edge of her couch, head in her hands. I just married a guy I barely know to take him to meet my grandmother. What am I doing with my life? Then the bathroom door opened. Mason stepped out, shirtless, damp hair falling over his brow, muscles toned and lean. She blinked. You, don't look like you've missed many meals. He smirked. Pull-up bars in parks and running after trains helps too. She tried not to look, but wow. The next day they drove to her grandmother's cottage. Mason wore a collared shirt and khakis borrowed from her cousin. You nervous? He asked. No, she lied. Just dying inside. At the house, her mom greeted them warmly. You must be Mason. Welcome. They stepped into the sunlit kitchen, where the scent of baked apples and rosemary chicken filled the air. Grandma's in the living room, her mom said. She's been waiting. Eleanor took Mason's hand and led him in. Margaret Foster sat in her recliner, a crocheted blanket over her lap. Grandma, Eleanor said softly, this is Mason, my husband. The old woman squinted, studying him. Mason, she murmured. That name sounds familiar. He froze. Are you that missing music's producer? The one from the news? Eleanor choked on air. Grandma, she laughed nervously. Of course not. Mason smiled politely. I think you have me confused with someone else. But Margaret narrowed her eyes. No, I don't forget faces, especially those eyes. He stayed calm, but Elena saw the tension in his jaw. I just have one of those faces, he said. Maybe, Margaret said slowly, but I like him. If he treats you well, that's all I care about. Elena smiled, grateful, surprised to realize it wasn't even a lie. Dinner was a spread of roasted vegetables, buttery mashed potatoes, and chicken baked to perfection. Mason, help yourself, her mom encouraged. He did, with grace that caught even her off guard. His movements were refined. He didn't eat like someone who'd been hungry for days. He ate like someone raised at five-star tables. Her mother tilted her head. You have great manners, she said. What did you do before meeting my daughter? Mason paused. I worked in production, music, consulting with independent artists. Eleanor nearly choked again. That's wonderful, her mom said. You two must have hit it off right away. It was unexpected, Mason replied, but real. Eleanor flushed because the way he said it, his tone, it felt real, too real. That night they slept in separate rooms. She curled up on the couch. He took the guest bed, but neither of them truly rested. Their minds were spinning. By morning it was time to leave. Grandma hugged them tightly. Take care of my girl, she told Mason. She's been taking care of me, he replied. On the drive home, Elena said nothing for miles, until finally... Mason? Yeah? Why were you on that street corner? Why that spot? He hesitated. It felt like the only place I could disappear. Disappearing from what? He didn't answer. Back at the apartment, Mason offered to cook omelettes. He chopped vegetables with surprising skill. You ever work in a kitchen? She asked. Nope. Watched a lot of cooking videos, and life gave me time to practice. She watched him more closely now. He was hiding something, but what? That night, as she lay on the couch, she heard him whisper, Eleanor. She turned. Yeah? Do you regret it? She stared at the ceiling. The marriage? The lies? You? A long pause. Not yet. They both laughed quietly. The next morning, Eleanor woke up to an empty living room. She glanced toward the mattress where Mason had been sleeping. Gone. She wandered to the tiny balcony and stopped cold. Mason stood there, phone to his ear, speaking in a low, serious tone. I've already traced the last 3 deposits. Yes. He's diverting funds through the shell accounts again. We need the final transfer recorded. No, I can't come back yet. Not until I'm sure he doesn't know I'm watching. Eleanor backed away before he could see her. What had she just heard? That wasn't the voice of a street musician trying to rebuild his life. That was the voice of someone undercover, someone on a mission. When Mason came back inside, Eleanor forced a smile. Morning, he said cheerfully. You're up early? Couldn't sleep. She nodded, but her hands trembled as she made coffee. Later that afternoon, he offered to run out and get fresh bread. As soon as the door closed, she collapsed onto the couch, mind spinning. She turned on the TV. The news. A segment was just ending, but she caught the headline. Still no word on missing billionaire Mason Reed. Her heart slammed in her chest. The screen showed his face, clean-shaven, wearing a suit, smiling in front of flashing cameras. The caption below read, Heir to Orion Music Group. Disappeared 2 months ago amidst financial scandal. Rumoured to be in hiding. Authorities unsure if it's evasion, abduction, or self-exile. She turned off the TV. Her hands were shaking. It was him. The same man who had eaten turkey wraps on a sidewalk, who had folded blankets on her couch, who had married her as a favour, the billionaire. When Mason returned, she was waiting, the remote in her hand. The image burned in her mind. Is there something you want to tell me? She asked. He paused. What do you mean? Don't do that, she said quietly. I saw the news, I know. His shoulders fell. It wasn't supposed to go like this. How long were you going to pretend? She snapped. Was this some kind of game to you? No, he said, voice breaking. I swear, it was never a game. You married me, Mason. I did, and I meant it more than I ever expected to. Eleanor stared at him, heart pounding. Why didn't you tell me? Because the moment I did, I would lose this. You, everything. Tears burned her eyes. I trusted you, she whispered, and I was starting to feel something real. I feel something real, he said desperately. That's what I've been afraid of this whole time. But she shook her head. Get out. He opened his mouth to protest. Please, just go. Mason looked at her for a long, aching moment, then turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence he left behind felt louder than anything. She didn't sleep that night. The apartment felt colder, emptier. She stared at the ring still on her finger. Why hadn't she taken it off? Because even now, even with the betrayal, part of her still cared. 2 days passed, then a white envelope appeared on her kitchen table. Inside was a note. I didn't come back for me. I came back for you. Not for forgiveness, but to return what you gave me. Hope. I'll be rooting for you. Always. M. Inside the box beside it was a second wedding band and a tiny keychain shaped like a guitar pick. Eleanor sat on the couch holding them both. She didn't know if she was ready to see him again, but she couldn't deny what she still felt. The next day, at a corner bakery, she looked up at the small mounted TV. The news was playing again. There he was, Mason Reed on screen, standing at a podium surrounded by reporters. What about the fraud charges, Mr. Reed? A journalist asked. He didn't flinch. Today I submitted all evidence to the authorities, Mason said calmly. My former business partner will be held accountable for every stolen cent. While I disappeared, I wasn't running. I was investigating, quietly, carefully. For the truth, Elena stared, frozen in place. He looked so different, polished, powerful, but in his eyes, still that same gentleness, that same man who had once said, "Marry me just until Sunday." That evening, Elena passed by the same sidewalk where it all began, where she first offered Mason a meal. She stopped. There, folded neatly in the corner, was the old blanket he used to sit on. She knelt and touched it, almost expecting him to appear like a ghost from memory. He was real. All of it had been real. Even the lies couldn't erase that. When she returned home, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You need to know what he did for you. Her brows furrowed. Another message appeared. It was just an address and a time. No name, no explanation. Her heart raced. She didn't want to go, but she couldn't not. At the address, a small office downtown, she was greeted by a silver-haired man in a suit. "Miss Foster, I'm Elliot. I worked with Mason for years. He asked me to give you something personally, in case things between you two didn't work out." He handed her a flash drive. "There's a private room. You can watch it alone. I'll wait." She nodded, trembling. Inside the room, she plugged the device into a computer. One file. She clicked. The video opened to Mason, seated in front of a blank wall, his face tense. "Eleanor, if you're seeing this, it means I lost the only good thing I've found in years. I never meant to lie to you. I didn't even plan to be in your life. But you gave me food without asking who I was. You listened to me when the world just passed by. And somewhere between fake vows and quiet breakfasts, I fell for you." He looked straight into the camera. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but if you ever want the truth without masks, I'll be waiting." The screen went black. Elena stared, tears slipping down her cheeks. It hadn't been a game. It had been love, messy, complicated, true. When she stepped outside, Elliot handed her an envelope. "Mason arranged for your apartment to be transferred to your name. He wanted you to have a place of your own, in case he couldn't come back." She opened her mouth, but no words came. She nodded, accepted the envelope, and walked out into the late afternoon sun. The next day, a message appeared on her phone. "Today's the hearing. I might lose everything, but at least I didn't lose my conscience. I still dream about that almost kiss." Her breath caught, so did she. That afternoon, she stood before her front door and found another envelope. Inside, an invitation to a private gala, hosted by the Reed Foundation, signed, "Laura Reed, his sister. He doesn't know I'm inviting you, but you should be there, just to see him, even if you don't say a word." Eleanor clutched the note, unsure if she could do it, but deep down she knew she would. The next night she walked into the elegant venue wearing a navy blue dress. She kept to the back, unnoticed among the polished guests. Then she saw him. Mason stood across the room in a tailored suit, thinner than before, but more composed. Still him. Still her husband, on paper at least. Then he saw her, and everything stopped. "You came," he said softly, appearing beside her. "I wasn't sure I would. Did my sister guilt you into it?" She said I deserved the truth. He smiled faintly. "I didn't ask her to. I wasn't going to pressure you." "Then why are you here?" "Because no matter where I go, part of me still looks for you." She looked away. "You could have told me the truth from the start." "I know, and I didn't. And that's on me." Silence. He took a breath. "I'm not asking for a second chance. I just wanted you to know. It was real for me." Every moment Elena's voice cracked. "I was angry, I still am, but it wasn't the end." He blinked, surprised. "You still wear the ring?" She nodded slowly, holding up her hand. "I tried to take it off, I couldn't." He smiled, genuine, relieved. "Then I'll wait, however long it takes." Days passed, their contact was gentle, No pressure, just space. Then, one quiet morning, Mason messaged her. "Can I show you something? It matters to me." They met at a modest construction site in the hills. "What is this?" she asked. "It's a transitional home for people on the street, families, musicians, artists. It'll have music studios too." Her eyes filled with tears. "You built this?" "I'm funding it. You inspired it." He reached into his pocket and handed her an envelope. "Open it when you're alone." That night, Elena sat at her kitchen table. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. "Elena, I didn't ask you to run away with me. I'm asking you to stay, to build something real. No contracts, no lies, just love. If your answer is yes, meet me on the rooftop tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mason." The next evening she arrived just before sunset. The rooftop was quiet, scattered with candles and soft lights. Mason stood facing the skyline, hands in his pockets. She walked up slowly. "This feels cinematic," she said. He turned. "You came." "Of course I did." He pulled out a small box. "I'm not here to repeat vows. I'm here to make a real one." He opened it. "Not to fix the past, but to build the future." She smiled through tears and held out her hand. He placed the ring on her finger again. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "That's a finally." 3 months later, they held a quiet wedding in her grandmother's garden. Margaret gave her blessing, smiling brighter than anyone. At the altar, Mason whispered, "I've been a billionaire, a nobody, a runaway, but none of it matters more than being yours." Eleanor replied, "I waited for someone to rescue me, but you didn't come to save me. You came to see me, and that's why I'll walk with you into chaos or peace." They kissed, and this time it wasn't a promise, it was a beginning.